Here we are!
Yay.
Hey!
Hola!
Janelle's back from Philly.
Yeah!
She is.
What'd you get us, Janelle?
I didn't get nothing.
What'd you get? What'd you get them?
I
Nothing?
got you guys Janelle back! Like, anybody cares, I know. I know.
All right, so remember, this is Brian and Janelle Overtime. We just wrapped up the live radio show. Remember, you can download the Moody Radio mobile app and listen to us every day if you don't live in Northeast Ohio. Come on, what are you doing?
Hello.
You can listen in your car. Come on, unlimited data. I'm sure you've got it. 2019. But like and share these conversations so you can continue them yourselves. Today, we're going to talk about a really interesting Christianity Today article that has to do with what this guy says is his most reliable ministry tool. That's a big deal to call it that.
Oh, yes.
Like
The
most. We all work in ministry in some respect, don't we?
Yeah.
Like if we're serving in church, or even like your job. Your job is ministry.
You're right. Parenting at home, that's our first, it should be our first ministry.
How much did it cost him for this tool?
This tool, absolutely free.
What? So it's not like
Wow.
logos,
Ministry
like an
accessible.
But wait, there's more.
app? Oh!
The hard part about it, it's not just free, it's a difficult one to swallow in some respects. What is it? He said his most reliable ministry tool is keeping his mouth shut.
What?
And you're talking to people who are in talk radio.
Yeah.
So trust me, we're
All
paid to
you
talk.
do.
So here's the story he starts with to illustrate this, and I think it's going to be helpful to our conversation, because I want to know why it's so hard for us to do this. We might agree that, oh yeah, listening, that's good. Most people I know, we struggle to listen. We struggle to be slow to speak.
And when we are when we do listen, it's like, what am I going to respond? What am I going to respond?
Yeah, you're not actually listening, you're formulating your response. Yes. So he writes, his name is Chris and he writes, I was only 21 years old when a family asked if I could meet with them to discuss their marital difficulties and how it was affecting their teenage daughter and son. At the time, I had pastor in my title, but I wasn't yet married and didn't have any children. So
Wow.
picture this, 21, would you help us with our marriage and how it's affecting our kids? 21. He said, as I read the email from them, I wondered why they contacted me. I was a part of a large staff that included people with titles such as care pastor. Surely others would have been more suited for this. How could I possibly help? And he said, when I feel like I have nothing to bring in these moments, I remember my ears. They are without question the most valuable asset in pastoral ministry, or I would say in ministry of any kind. I cannot tell you how many times I walked away from counseling sessions or visiting someone without having said much at all, yet feeling like I had given them the attention their problem deserves. And here's the line I love. So often what people need is to be heard with great effort.
Great effort.
To be heard with great effort. And ultimately,
Wow.
all he did with them was ask questions. He didn't declare anything. He didn't say anything. He listened and asked questions.
So would you say, when you read that line, my first thought was, what is that? To listen with great effort. Would you describe that simply as that, asking questions? Or is there more to listening with great effort?
Part of the great effort is keeping the mouth closed.
Oh, yeah, that's
Because
what,
you hear something and it triggers in your brain some analogy or anecdote and you want to jump in and say it.
Yeah.
But a lot of the healing, or at least the understanding for a person, if they're not yet self-aware of the problem, is as they talk it out, they start to realize, wow, okay, there's more there than what I was seeing.
Yeah.
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 Good morning, Jennifer and Mike. And look at Myrna didn't show up late this morning. Good job, Myrna.
Hey, Myrna! Jeffrey from Chicago. Yeah.
Right. All
Jeffrey,
right.
you got to send me some tips. I'm going to go to Chicago with my husband in October. Tell me where to go visit. What to see. Don't you feel special? He's tuning in from Chicago.
More than just
He's
shopping.
busy.
I'm not surprised.
No? Not surprised?
Just kidding. I'm glad you're here. So,
Okay.
So you're asking, what does it mean to listen with great effort? I think you already hinted at the answer. It's listening without formulating your response.
Yeah.
It's listening to actually try to understand what someone's saying. So the next thing you say typically would have to be a question, right? It'd be like, so when you say that this hurt, why did that hurt?
Yeah.
Or when you said this, why did you say that? Or what does that mean?
Yeah.
It's not, here's what you should do.
Yeah.
Or, you know, it happened to me once.
Yeah.
Here's what I did.
Yeah.
I think that's what it means to, again, such a great line. So often what people need is to be heard with great effort. What does it mean to you? To be heard with great effort. Like if you and Len are arguing,
I'm glad you brought that.
what does it mean for you to feel heard by Len with great effort?
Okay, for me to actually, where I want to go is for me to listen to him with great effort would be to not get defensive and to not assume his intentions or motives. That's where I struggle the most.
Okay.
And so when I think of asking him questions, like the part where you said, so what you're saying is this hurt you because, or what you're saying is this, you're struggling with XYZ. Because what I do is I assume and I say, so you're saying I'm not a good wife if he tells me I did something that hurt him. You know, I get defensive. I assume. Like he could say, remember how in the beginning, oh, so what did you do all day? It'll turn into a blow up because I'll immediately say, so what, you're saying I'm being lazy or, you know, whatever it is, that's my struggle. That's where I would have to put most effort, almost turning it around and putting myself in his shoes and really trying to find out, wow, that hurt you. Why? Versus you're telling me I'm trying to hurt you. That's a struggle for me.
Those are two really good ones. You said it's hard to not get defensive and assume motives, and that keeps you from hearing.
It does all day long. And the why, first I want to hear what you guys, but first,
we have to say this.
Maria Bryan, did you see that?
She's from Romania. She's listening in.
She's like, it's 4 p.m. in Romania.
She wins the listening from furthest away award.
What?
I mean, there could be
amazing.
somebody listening from Southeast Asia, perhaps, or New Zealand or something, a little further.
Wow.
Right now,
That is all. And then not only that, she's saying, finally, I got you guys live. It's 4 p.m. in Romania, so I'm finally watching you live. So just in case, it sounds like you already listened through the Moody app, but if you're not listening to the show live, you can. So just download Moody app.
And then Myrna going, wow, Brian, throw me under the bus.
That's what he does.
That's what I do. Just ask that guy.
Yep. See the tire tracks?
And I'm sorry if the truth hurts. You showed up late most days, so what do you want? I'm proud of you, though, for getting here on time. Good job.
Yeah.
Kimash is on the line.
Ooh,
And Lisa.
Straighten up.
Wow.
Good morning, Michelle.
So what does that sound like to you or to you guys in terms of listening with effort? What stops you from really listening?
Part of it is keeping focused. This is going to sound bad, but okay. I may be listening to my wife and at the same time thinking, okay, I really want to get on Facebook and check something, or I really got to go make this call, or you know, and you're not devoting your mental strength completely to the conversation. And so you have to make the effort to push the other things aside and say, you're worth my time. I want to listen to what you have to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true, though, isn't it? It's hard to keep our minds focused.
Yeah.
And,
But
yeah,
that's hard.
and gratefully Dana's not tuning in right now, I don't think, so she won't know that you're my. But
Somebody
my mind
might
does the
tell
same
her, but
thing.
that's okay.
You know, Sarah and I, as again, we're talking about this really powerful piece here in Christianity Today, where a pastor says his most reliable ministry tool is keeping his mouth shut. And I think more specifically what he does is listen and ask questions to understand. He's not trying to give answers, he's trying to understand.
Myrna says, I'm learning to be an intentional listener. Far too often I would listen to defend myself,
Yes.
Yeah.
solve their problem,
Yes.
or
Yes.
give some great scripture reference. I'm now trying to ask questions, repeat what they said so I'm sure I heard them correctly. I will admit that I can definitely do better. And the learning here, understanding correctly in terms of like what's behind what you said, like because a lot of times people will tell us stuff and you don't know. We're just quick to assume why they said it, why they felt
we
that
assume the
way,
worst.
and we assume the worst, and then we never even I'm reading this book. It's called Mind Wise, and it's not, I'm going to describe it, but just bear with me. It's like mind reading, not spiritual, not that. It's saying how to really understand people. It's more psychological. But one thing that blew my mind, and it's only in the first chapter, it was saying the people we least understand are like the people closest to us, our husbands and whatever, and saying husbands and family. Saying one of the biggest roadblocks is that we assume we understand them. Yeah. So because I'm thinking, of course I know, Len, and most of what I think I know is assumptions, because we're feeling, I'm around you enough, so I already know why you said that. And that's why I can grow, like what Myrna's doing, really seeking to understand and stop assuming. Just because I've been married to you 20 years, I need to really ask questions, because a lot of the times I don't understand you as much as I feel like.
And I think there's this part of it too, where we give opinions based on our own experiences.
Yeah.
And that's why asking questions is so important, because my experience is completely different than like my friends, than my family. And I think I've been hurt in the past because people give advice only based on what they know,
Yeah.
versus really honing in and trying to ask me questions. But I think I've also done the same, where I love giving people advice, which sometimes you end up giving them the wrong advice because you don't listen to the entire story or you don't ask questions.
Yeah.
So I've been in that too.
Yeah. Great comment from Cindy here.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes.
It isn't always about solving the problem. Sometimes people, including us, just need a listening ear. We need to let people right in front of us know they matter and that we are listening when they are talking to us. And that's, I think, one of his big points. He talks about those times in this piece here, again, from Christianity Today, my most reliable ministry tool, keeping my mouth shut. He talks about how some of his most impactful moments of pastoral ministry have been the ones in which he said the least. Because he's discovered that what people need is so often, what people need is to be heard with great effort. And now, I don't know if you guys have experienced this in relationship conflict or marriage conflict for two of you. Sarah and I have had to develop a vocabulary to communicate to each other that you don't get me. Like, we're arguing right now, and we're arguing almost about two different things. You're saying this, and I'm saying this, and it's like over here,
wow.
right?
Yeah.
And so Sarah and I have gotten the practice of looking at each other and going, you don't hear me. Or no, that's not right. We don't say it like that. That's very accusatory. I don't feel heard.
Yeah.
And that's like a reset for us to go, wait a minute. I'm spending a lot of time declaring, and I'm not spending a lot of time listening. And she started me on this.
Do you agree that sometimes the people that we're around, spouses or family, they may need our help communicating their hurts?
Yes.
Because I feel myself a lot of times, this is what with anybody saying, I hear your words and this is what you're saying. And they'll say, I don't feel heard. And sometimes it's helping them. Instead of getting caught on like, well, then stop saying this. This is what you're telling me. Maybe helping them. Or is it our job to help them? Or should we just say, no, you need to like explain yourself better?
But this presumes that when we feel offended, that we give someone the benefit of the doubt and presume that we're misunderstanding them rather than saying, you're hurting me. And that's really hard to do.
Yeah.
We did a puzzle in one of my college classes. We sat back to back, and each person was given a puzzle, and the one person was allowed to tell the other where to put whatever pieces, and the other person could not say anything. Well, the pieces were the same set of colors, but the colors were on different pieces for each puzzle. So if I would say, well, take the red piece and put it up in the right corner, it didn't fit on his puzzle.
Oh.
And you had to eventually learn that, okay, it's not working out, I need to be more descriptive, take the red triangle and put it in this location. And then he had more to work with. Oh, the triangle fits there. It's not red, though. It's purple for me. And sometimes I think we need that in our conversations, to not just assume, well, exactly what has been said by Kelly and Janelle, that your background is different.
Yeah.
And you need more information. And if you're with the listening party, that's where you need to ask for clarification and be like, well, what do you mean by that?
Yes. No, that's a great point, because oftentimes we really don't, when we're miscommunicating, we're not even on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you've ever encountered that with a friend or a spouse, where it's like you're in an argument and it's like you guys are on two different planets.
Yeah.
Like,
And
she's
so it's-
mad at me for this, but I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about this.
And it brings up that whole thing of, do you want to be right, or do you want to what was it? Do you want to be right, or do you want to
Something.
be happy? Like, in the sense of, like, a lot of times we're so busy trying to make a point and
Right.
and trying to be heard that we're not seeking really understanding and really meeting of the minds. Chin says, you said something. Chin says, I think we all know the dichotomy between quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger, and reality where we are quick to speak and slow to listen, and almost certainly quick to anger. With the advent of social media and modern news, perception changes when the communication mediums change, and we adapt, desensitize ourselves likewise. And of course, misunderstanding is inevitable with the latter. Mike says, I'm getting better, but I tend to be like Peter. I speak, then I think about what to say or how to say it.
Yeah. Peter was like that a lot. He's just like
Yeah.
a bull in a china shop, you know.
He makes me feel better. I'm like, well, Peter.
He makes me
I
feel
know. Yeah.
Hey, by the way, what's up, Sarah? Not my Sarah, different Sarah.
Hey.
And she
Sarah
says,
Miller.
you gals and guys are the best.
Aw.
Thank you.
Myrna's laughing at Brian. Yeah, Myrna. Maria, Milagros, Kimasha, Rosemary,
Oh, Manita.
Colleen. Yeah.
This is a
yeah.
difficult thing for us to learn how to do. So how have you and Len figured this out? Like, how have you been able to resolve conflict better through the idea of needing to be heard with great effort? Or are you still working on it?
We're still working on it. I'm going to give you advice that I was given that we're trying to implement, so it didn't come from us. But one of the things we've tried is going on walks. And there's something, this is me, Len doesn't think this way, but I'm like, okay, this is good, because he just goes on walks with me because we just like it and we get away from the kids. I like
Emphasis on the
it
latter.
because as we're unpacking our days, there's a thing that I had read about the good things of walking and talking about intense topics, because your side by side is not confrontational. It just helps you not to kind of keep the mood down and tackle difficult topics if you have to. But in terms of communicating and listening better, somebody gave me good advice, and it's listing. If she said, put a timer, and then there's a sign that we kind of stand in the middle. This is in the beginning as we get used to it, and one says talker, one says listener. And under listener, it says what we're talking about. Don't get defensive, ask questions, all of that. The talker says, don't point fingers, don't accuse, and just talk about your feeling, like your side. And you each get 15 minutes. And then she was just saying, you don't do this all the time, but it puts into practice really, really listening to understand. Yeah. So we're trying to use it with our teens, to kind of help us really stop the whole trying to fix but 20 years later, obviously we're still learning.
But that does define that transition for kids to teenage years, when you can no longer declare things, you must discuss them, and they need to be heard. It's not like a 2-year-old trying to touch a hot stove. We're not going to discuss this. You can't understand it. You sometimes have to let them tell you how they feel and make sure they feel heard.
Yeah.
Or it's going to crush them.
Yeah.
And for Sarah and me, I think we're working on it in 2 areas. I mentioned before, when we're in a conflict and we're having a hard time, like if I don't feel like she's understanding me, I do 2 things. I'll say, I don't feel heard right now, so it must be because I'm not communicating this well.
Yeah.
So
Take the
what,
blame.
What that's doing is I'm not accusing her of not listening well. I'm saying, it's funny how I talk for a living, and when it comes to conflict in a relationship, it's like I don't know how to talk.
Yeah.
You guys been there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you like can communicate news super clearly, and you're talking to Dana, and you're like, you hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
I can't say stuff. And so I'll say, I don't feel heard. I must not be communicating this well. Can you help me? I think that's how we have to approach it.
And a lot of times, I know for me, I can speak for me, when I'm not being heard is when I do what that exercise helped me see that I can do sometimes. If he hurt me and I come across as accusing, he's not going to listen. You got flesh and sin and egos, so he's going to put his guard up.
Right.
But if I don't accuse and talk about just my side and say, that really hurt me, let's say, and stop there, it would kind of open his ears a little bit more. So sometimes, like you said, we need to stop like accusing and saying you're not listening, and maybe look at ourselves and saying, am I clouding this with accusations and judgments? Kimasha says,
well, Kimasha wrote something down.
Hello.
Probably agreeing with me.
Agreeing all the time. She says, the hard part about listening is when you feel you have said the same thing before a dozen times. It makes listening really hard. I've had to remember them, forgive 70 times 7 to really listen again for the 490th time.
That's true, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's hardest to listen when it feels like you've been saying this forever.
And good math.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brian, he didn't even catch that. You're like, wow, 490, where did that come from?
Kimasha, I believe you've missed the memo that there's no math in overtime. I'm not sure you realize that. You didn't know.
The square root of 2.
So how do you handle that? If you've said things over and over and you haven't been heard historically, like throughout, you got to bring it up again.
There's no great way to handle it. I can tell you on the other end of it, where just recently there was a couple of things that Sarah has told the kids and me 100 times, and for whatever reason we just can't. We haven't prioritized it, so we've devalued her. And all I can say in those moments is just be repentant, right? Is just be like, you're right. You have said this before, and we haven't done it, and I'm so sorry. We're going to try to get better. What else can you do?
Sometimes, depending what it is, my wife loves little sticky notes, and if it's that she wants me to do something and I keep forgetting, she'll write me a sticky note, and I welcome that. I'm like, I don't remember stuff.
My goodness, yes.
Yeah, walk into another room and forget what I went there for.
Len, we've tried that too. Len forgets everything. Like, we'll have...
Like what?
No! We'll have, like... And it's stuff, managing a household and the kids and schedule. Let's say we'll have a game tomorrow, and he'll be like, what? You didn't tell me. And I'm like, I told you. But... he has a job and he's managing a whole lot of stuff, so little things like that he just can't. So I try to help him by texting it to him. It helps me too, because then I'll be like, I told you it's right here.
Yeah, good point.
But what I was going to ask you guys
That's
is...
funny, though. Put it in writing.
Yeah.
That's actually... Sarah does that with me all the time.
If for those listening and for us here, if you're like, man, I really want to be a better listener, especially with people in my circle, but maybe you're dealing with a spouse or a friend that's not listening to this, and their way of talking to you can make it very difficult to listen. For example, what I said in terms of the exercise, don't be judgmental, don't point fingers. It makes it easier to listen when you don't do that. What do you do if you're in a relationship with someone that doesn't exercise that, and they do point fingers and they do judge? How do you contain yourself? How do you constructively listen if you're dealing with difficult people like that?
All you can do is change yourself. We spend a lot of time and energy trying to change other people. That's going to cause conflict. I had a professor, I say this far too much, sorry if I say it again, who talked about when the students fail to learn, talking to teachers, when the students fail to learn, we have a tendency to blame the kids. You didn't study, you didn't do this, you don't do that. He said when the students fail to learn, change yourself. If you've got a spouse who doesn't, or a friend who's accusatory, is not listening well, all you can do is change how you do it. So what if you model what it looks like? Maybe the person is doing that, Janelle, because they don't feel heard.
Right.
Maybe the person is accusatory because they don't feel heard. So hear them. Go do what this person says. Be heard. Make sure they feel heard with great effort.
Right.
Take a moment where you stop worrying about yourself and you do whatever you can to understand their hurt.
Right.
And once they feel heard, I can guarantee they'll be willing much more to listen to you, right?
Right. Kimarsha says, "Preach, Brian. You just made his week."
I know. It's
Made his week.
Yeah.
Jane says, "We have been married 41 years. We're still learning daily."
Right.
Mike, Montina says, "Good morning. Remember, she's a new listener."
Hey, Montina.
Hey.
First time today, had my husband listening since he didn't have to go to work today. Great
All right.
topic. Satin says, "I fail to remember everything at that age." And then Robert said the same thing. "Quiet. Y'all are starting to step on my toes. My wife gets on me for forgetting." Oh, I hope she's not
I was like,
listening.
Do you know what Sarah
man.
does with me though?
What?
Well, because once we go past 2, I'm done. I don't know if you feel this way. So like if you're giving me directions, you get to the 3rd turn, it's all gone, all of it. All the turns are gone. If you go to the grocery store and there's 2 items and you put a 3rd one on it, I've forgotten them all. So at that point,
Oh, man.
I go, "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. Could you text me that list, or I'm not gonna remember."
Yeah.
And then I'll still forget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you that way?
Yeah.
Once it passes 2, I'm done.
Yeah.
I do pretty good with the list, but even then, she wanted me to get a bag of ice, and it's not like you pick it up after you've checked out, so it's kind of out of the loop. And even though it was in big letters on the list, I left without the
Don't
ice.
forget to get ice, Ron.
Yeah.
Mike says,
Crazy.
"And when you still don't remember the sticky note, she texts it to your forehead with a pin."
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, listening with effort is very difficult.
Isn't that a great line?
Yeah.
I love that expression.
What do you guys think of the idea of like the talk pillow or some object that the person holding it is talking and nobody can interrupt them? You have to wait your turn.
Hi, Joe. Well,
Well, I was going to say, Sarah and I could probably use that, or to be more specific, I could probably use that pillow when she and I are disagreeing or talking about something.
yeah.
Sometimes I'm so anxious to get in something or
Yeah.
correct something that is misperceived, in
Yeah.
my opinion. I think that, have you ever done that?
No, I'm not an interrupter typically, so I'll wait until she's done. But I've seen it used like in TV shows or movies, and
Yeah.
I've always thought, well, that's interesting. Would be helpful. We had discussions with my college roommates. We'd have like 5 of us in a room. It was an apartment building, and so we would come up with dumb theological, splitting hair stuff, and we'd be talking, and the one roommate would just be there while you're trying to give your point, and then as soon as your mouth closed, then he'd charge in, and I'm thinking, we're not getting anywhere with this.
Yeah,
Why
that's
do we bother?
I like that. That the only thing is, it doesn't touch to the heart of listening. Because I've had my seasons where I could be holding the pillow and still be like, "Oh, I'm gonna tell you." So in combination with what we're talking about really listening, and then I thought about my kids too. We've tried the spoon, then they fight for the spoon. I'm talking now.
He's had the spoon more times than me. It's not fair.
Okay, I have a question for you guys. What do you do if all you've done is listen and listen and listen, and it's the same just story over and over again? When do you call it quits?
I would try to, I don't know. I guess before I would decide to call it quits, I'd try to figure out, why does it keep coming up again and again? Like, is it because the person doesn't feel heard? Either by me or by someone else.
Oh, are you talking about people that like have a victim?
Yeah, or like if there's or it's just for attention maybe.
Yeah.
Where it's just like the constant like I think as singles we maybe get this more where like you have like maybe an acquaintance come to you and all they want to do for 3 hours is tell you about the same scenario.
Yeah.
So like when do you like call that like I'm done listening? This is kind of like, or do you like cut it short? I don't know.
That's a really hard one. I know we have people in our lives that everything's not okay unless everything's not okay.
Right.
People who are perpetually discontent.
Yeah.
And there are times when the only response that we have is they might bring up some sort of big dramatic thing.
Yeah.
And you just kind of go, huh, wow.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
what they want to do is draw you in to
Yeah.
create drama.
Right.
And when you don't let them, sometimes they just stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that helps or not, but that's kind of what we
Yeah.
discovered.
No, of course.
Yeah.
So, as part of this too, I think one last thing perhaps. Sarah and I have discovered as well that there are some obstacles to listening that we create. It took us like 5 years early in our marriage to figure this out. And one of the obstacles to listening were absolutes. So if somebody uses an absolute, it shuts down this conversation. As in, let's just say it's you and Len, and you ask Len to take out the trash when he gets home. He's never done it, or he doesn't do it as often as you want. And you say, Len, you never take out the trash.
Yeah.
Immediately it shuts down the listening. Why? Because he starts thinking of all the times he has done it.
Wow.
Or you never listen to me, or you always bring that up.
Yeah.
And we discovered that it was the absolute that would shut down the conversation and prevent listening. And so you'll watch us, it's funny, you won't watch us, it's not your business.
Okay.
But if we get into a discussion and somebody uses one, we've got to a point where we've dealt with this so much where if I say it, I go, Sarah, I'll go, no. Sometimes when we we'll stop ourselves from the absolute because they hurt.
Yeah.
And I think they prevent people from being able to listen
Yeah.
in many respects.
Yeah.
Because they're always, they're always,
Yep.
they're rarely true.
Yeah. And I like that. And it's also the encouragement of not only be a good listener, but help the other person to be a good listener. And I think it's like you're saying, words that you use or tones that you use or coming across as judgmental, makes it difficult for the other person to really listen to you. And we can own that. If you're walking around with an attitude and pointing fingers, you can't be mad if you're like, well, you're not listening to me. You don't know where I'm coming from. Sometimes we got to check the way we're communicating.
So you're saying basically it's really hard to be Len.
To be, absolutely. Brian, really? Really, Brian?
Wow.
Wow. That's great.
That was funny.
No, it wasn't.
Thank you. I think that's about it for us today. Thanks to everybody. Rod, you're tuning in here at the end. Colin, thanks for jumping in, brother.
Hey.
Good to see you. Tune in for
Lots of
overtime
people.
tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
Like and share.
Yeah.
Add more
Like-
comments.
And thank you, Myrna and Kimasha, for laughing at Brian.
Yeah.
Good job.
That's good.
That's what they did. I didn't.
And remember, Myrna, you weren't quite at the beginning. Just back up a little earlier tomorrow. Kimasha, thanks again for affirming me. I don't know what I'd do without you.
Oh, that's cool.
Aw.
All right, we out.
See ya.
Yeah.